So the world is divided into 24 different time zones. So all those little colors up the top there, 20 different time zones, okay? If you have a look, there's Australia, there is Europe over here, that's India, Europe is over here, that's Africa, that's South America, North America. Can you see over here is an international date line. If you move from one time zone to another in an easterly direction, so that's going to the right, you need to move the clock forward. So for instance, we are over here, they are ahead of us in time. If you move from one time zone to another in a westerly direction, that's going to the left, you would move your clock backwards. So Africa is behind Australia in time. The international date line, so that's this here, is the line on the map of the Earth with the calendar day officially. So over here, going that way, your calendar goes back a day. So this goes back a day if you go that way. If you cross going this way, you go forward a day. Isn't that amazing? The time in England, so England is about, oh, there we go, right here by that line. England that used to be called the Greenwich Mean Time, the GMT, is now known as the Coordinated Universal Time, which is the UTC. It's also referred to as Zulu time in the military. UTC is the reference point for every time zone in the world. So time zones are either ahead or behind the UTC. For example, the time difference between Melbourne and Los Angeles is 18 hours, not taking into account the Pacific Daylight Time. This is because Melbourne is 10 hours ahead of UTC and Los Angeles is 8 hours ahead. So if they're 10 hours and Los Angeles is 8 hours, 10 and 8 will give you the 18 hours. What time is it in Melbourne if the time in London is 9 a.m. UTC? So Melbourne is 10 hours ahead. Add 10 hours to the London time, which is 9. So if we add 10 hours to 9, it gives us 19, which is 7 o'clock in the evening. 9 plus 10, the time in Melbourne is 7 o'clock. In Australia, we've got Western Australia, which is WST. We've got South Australia, which is and the Northern Territory, which is central, and then we've got the Eastern Standard Time. Australia is divided into 3 zones. The different standard time zones are, I've just told you. Western Australia is 2 hours behind Eastern Standard Time. Western Australia here is 2 hours behind us in New South Wales and Victoria and Tasmania. And South Australia are half an hour behind us. If the time in Sydney is 9:30 in the evening, so here, what is the time in Perth? Remember, we said it's 2 hours behind. So therefore, Perth is 2 hours behind Sydney. You take 2 hours away from the Sydney time. 9:30, take 2 hours, 7:30 in Perth. Daylight savings. Many countries around the world have daylight saving time during summer to make the most of the warmer weather. Daylight saving time starts on the first Sunday in October, and all the clocks go forward an hour, 2 a.m. in the morning. Everybody does that. Daylight saving time finishes on the first Sunday in April, and the clocks turn back an hour at 3 a.m. Queensland, Western Australia, and the Northern Territory don't observe daylight saving time. Okay. Daylight saving time was first used in Australia in 1917 during World War I to cut down on the fuel required for the artificial lighting at night. So if the night was longer, they didn't need to artificially light the place. It was reintroduced during World War II in 1971, and daylight saving was adopted by most eastern states and has been in place ever since. So there we've got them. When daylight saving time is in operation, Tasmania, Victoria, and New South Wales have the same time. So Tasmania, New South Wales, Victoria, all of these have the same time, and this is called the Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Queensland is 1 hour behind Melbourne, and the Northern Territory is 1.5 hours behind Melbourne. South Australia is half an hour behind Melbourne. Western Australia is 2 hours behind Melbourne. So, you are visiting Melbourne and you want to call your friend in Darwin to wish her a happy birthday. If it's 8 p.m. in Melbourne, so let's find Melbourne. What time is it in Darwin? So the Northern Territory is 1.5 hours behind Melbourne. So if it's 8 p.m. in Melbourne and it's 1.5 hours behind Melbourne time, so it hasn't got there yet, you have to take off 1.5 hours. So it's 6:30 p.m. in Darwin. I want you to try that one for me now.